Hi guys, this is Imran from Options Insight. Due to the incredible interest that I've had from people asking me about crypto options, once I've told them I've become active in the space, I thought it made sense to start making videos about crypto and crypto options specifically. Now, I'm not a blockchain or crypto expert, but what I am is an options expert. And since June, I've been trading Bitcoin and Ethereum options with my own cash, and I've managed to 5x it. I've also managed to do that in a way where my risk was super controlled and I wasn't going to lose a hell of a load of money. So the idea of these videos in this new series, which I'm going to call Crypto Insight, is to talk you guys through some of the strategies and ways that I'm trading crypto options and taking advantage of my knowledge of trading volatility, term structure, skew, and being able to manipulate those positions to give myself some edge and give myself some advantage in the way that I express my views to participate in these crazy wild swings that crypto markets can have. Being a vol trader, I'll tell you now, the most exciting and the most fun assets to trade, volatility, are the ones that know how to move. And right now, there's no other asset class that knows how to move like crypto. So with that, I hope you enjoy this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you like this content, and feel free to sign up for a free trial to Macro Insight, where you'll get this type of content. You'll also get other asset classes and you'll get live Q&A.
So crypto. So what's been going on in crypto this week? Well, we had some weakness in Bitcoin. That kind of reached a bit of a climax over the weekend. So if we look at the main support levels that I've been carving out on Bitcoin, we had 48, 45, and around 42.5. That was kind of what we're looking at. We didn't actually manage to touch 42.5. We got just shy of it at around 43. And then we bounced, and we had a relatively healthy bounce to 49,000. Okay, why are we bouncing? First, let's have a look. Did we get any signals? So again, we had 1, 2, 3 lows there. So you had lower lows there. What were we seeing in the momentum indicator? We were seeing higher lows in the momentum indicator. So that's signaling potential bullish divergence. We were also at the lower Bollinger Band on the 4-hour. So yeah, a few signals that maybe this could be it. So, you know, if you had any puts on, taking some profit on some of your puts might have been a reasonable idea. I actually managed to get out of half of my 48,000 puts. Didn't get out of all of them, unfortunately. I did have an offer to get out of some more, which didn't get filled. But while seeing this signal down here, I was thinking, yeah, let's pull the trigger on half just in case I don't get out of any of them. And thankfully, that was a good trade, right? So I took a little bit of profit on some put protection down there. We've now staged a reasonable rally. I still got some put protection because I want to always have some systematic hedge in place against my crypto. I did manage to cover some short calls that I'd been running in the 72,000 area to March. And in a rally, if we managed to get our head back to around, say, 55,000, I would probably start selling calls again, right? Again, maybe in that area around 70,000 or above, if I can get some premium out of that. I might have to move my calls to April expiry to get some premium if that rally doesn't happen right very quickly, basically. But that's kind of, so right now I'm not short any calls. I'm just long a few puts, but I've already financed them by taking profit on some puts and also by taking profit on some short calls, basically. So that's how I'm managing my Bitcoin exposure right now. Why is Bitcoin staged such an aggressive bounce? There's been a bit of news flow. You've had Citibank put out a huge report on Bitcoin, 108-page report, I believe. Very, very bullish in general, saying that Bitcoin could become the currency of choice for international trade in the future. So that's pretty bullish. Someone like Citibank coming out and saying that. You've also had Goldman Sachs reopening their crypto trading desk, which they had started in 2017, but they had halted in 2018. And now they're obviously seeing opportunities again. So they're going to start making prices in Bitcoin futures, options, etc. And they're going to have a proper go at it, right? So that, again, another form of institutional adoption for the crypto space, right? So that's a pretty bullish piece of news, I would say. Yeah. Okay, so that's Bitcoin. In terms of Ethereum, yeah, generally tracking the same sort of story. I mean, I think Ethereum has been weaker than Bitcoin recently. I mean, the liquidation that we had, you know, whatever, a couple of weeks back now, that was a bit more brutal to Ethereum than it was to Bitcoin. You know, on the Kraken exchange, it reached some liquidation low of like 700 on Ethereum, which is crazy. So, you know, not been great. I think Ethereum, there's been in the news that the gas fees keep spiking on Ethereum. So the transaction fees are not, people aren't in love with that. And then you've also got the rise of things like Cardano and Polkadot, which is potentially threatening the future of Ethereum, right? So you've got a few headwinds that are like popping up in Ethereum now. That doesn't mean to say it doesn't still have upside. If the whole crypto space and Bitcoin rallies, it probably does rally with it to an extent, but you know, maybe it has got some downside risk here, starting to show some potential downside risk. So me personally, like I own some Ethereum. I've kind of accumulated Ethereum through some call options that I had back last year, which did well. I'm considering, I haven't been running any put protection against my Ethereum. I haven't really been selling many calls. I've sold some calls, kind of monetized them, whatever. Right now, I'm not short any calls. I'm contemplating switching some of my Ethereum exposure into some of these other altcoins because I think you can have a situation, there's definitely a situation where Ethereum kind of fails and doesn't become that amazing DeFi central winning protocol, and some of these others do. And so I figure that it's kind of a relatively cheap way for me to hedge that exposure rather than buying puts or anything like that. If I just switch maybe 10% of my Ethereum holding into some of these other coins, then that diversifies me a little bit and kind of bails me out if Ethereum fails, but the other ones kind of take over, right? So provided I pick the ones that are going to beat Ethereum, and it seems like Cardano and Polkadot are like probably the favorites there. I don't really know that much about them. I probably need to do some more research, but that's where my head is kind of moving towards. I wouldn't get out of my entire Ethereum position, but diversifying some of it into those others, I think is starting to make sense, basically. Right? So it's the signaling that you've got these big old banks like Goldmans and Citi writing massive reports and talking about having crypto trading desks. It's giving more credibility to the space, right? You know, a lot of Bitcoin bears think that this is just a complete Ponzi scheme and is nonsense, and it's like they can't understand why anyone in their right mind would ever have any money in Bitcoin, right? So it's just the flip side of that argument where you've got banks writing 100-page reports saying that there's actually a legitimate reason to own this stuff. You know, it's just the counter argument to that, really, right? And it's just interesting that there's some of these big banks are all saying it now, right? Whether or not they're right, time will tell, right? But it's going to help the narrative. It's going to help the adoption narrative. It's going to help more people learn about the space, get interested in the space. You know, like, I mean, think about it. I'm an example, right? I was from traditional markets. It was only really last May, June, I started getting confident that I had to park some money in this space. And I started to do it. And now that money has exploded in value. And I've got a healthy pot now in crypto that I'm trading and I'm managing. And I'm much bigger in the space than I was 9 months ago, right? So just more and more people who get introduced to the space and get their head around the idea that the space is relevant and is credible and is here to stay and is not just going to be a flash in the pan. And that's probably a good thing for it longer term, right? And this kind of move away from gold into Bitcoin, there's still a lot of AUM parked in gold that doesn't really that is underperforming, right? For the reason that it's in gold, it would expect to be making more returns, and it's not making them because a lot of those returns are happening in Bitcoin. So I think a lot of people have already made some of that switch in the hedge fund community, but I think in the asset management community, they might have been slower to do that. And so these type of reports are going to convince more real money that maybe moving 10% of your gold into Bitcoin is a bit of a no-brainer, right? And I think just helping that switch occur is going to be supportive to the price of crypto as well. So that's kind of Bitcoin and ETH. And then, we'll look at the relative chart as we always do. And it hasn't really staged any bounce, right? So it's kind of, that speaks to the point that Ethereum's relatively weak, right? It had this liquidation, it kind of sold off, the ratio sold off to 0.03 and it barely bounced off there, right? So still showing you that Ethereum hasn't really caught a bid yet or has any legs on it, right? So something to keep an eye on, right? If this ratio, in the face of a rallying market, if this ratio is still lagging or even breaks down further, it's kind of the market signaling to you that ETH has got a big problem, basically, right? So, arguably that 0.03 level was a decent bounce level and it's held it quite well. But keep an eye on that, because if that 0.03 level breaks to the downside, then ETH could have some real bad liquidation to the downside, I'd say. Yeah. So, I mean, in fact, you got to think to yourself, if Bitcoin rallies and this ratio doesn't start rallying, then it is signaling to you that there's something up with ETH, right? So I'd be wary of that. Right? For me, it's like once you get your head around the idea that you have to own some of your wealth in Bitcoin, it offers you diversification, it offers you some purchasing power protection, it offers you an alternative to gold. It's going to be around in the future, most likely. It gives you a call option on the future of money, if that is the way the world decides to go. There's a lot of things that it has that make it attractive to hold over the long term. Once you get your head around that, you kind of become a bit more agnostic to the price swings, right? And you're just like, I'm just going to, every couple of months, I'm going to add to my Bitcoin holding, right? I'm going to earn, if you earn 5 or 10 grand over the next quarter, maybe you put 1 or 2 of that into Bitcoin, right? So I just feel that's kind of, if you think about it like that, then you become agnostic to the price swings. You don't worry too much about it. And you just say, well, I'm fairly confident over the long term, this thing's going to provide me some purchasing power protection, right? That's certainly what it's signaling that it's going to do. It's experienced multiple crises now, right? It had its own crisis in 2018. It had the March 20 crisis where it recovered off its own back, right? It wasn't like the Fed stepped in and bought corporate debt or bought treasuries to bail out those markets, right? This recovered all by itself, right? So it's showing some resilience. It's shown that the trust that people around the globe have got in it is starting to get bigger than the trust they have in their own governments and their own fiat currencies, right? And that dynamic, I don't think suddenly gets derailed all of a sudden, right? I think that's quite a slow moving thing, and it's certainly gained traction in the last 6 months because the amount of press that it's got about corporate adoption and stuff. But I think that probably continues. I mean, I'm on Clubhouse, right? I don't know if you guys know Clubhouse, all of you, but literally, like there are daily rooms on Clubhouse talking about nothing but Bitcoin for hours and hours and hours. And there's this massive movement to just educate everyone and their dog about Bitcoin and what it provides, what it is as an alternative to get away from fiat currency, why you should adopt the Bitcoin standard, all this type of stuff. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them are just talking their book, but the truth is there's a hell of a lot of people who want to learn about it and want to understand it. And I think that movement is begun. I don't think we're at the end of that movement. That doesn't mean that price can't dip and have corrections, and it can have quite violent corrections. But I think the movement is going to keep trending in that direction, basically. Yeah. And there's nothing that central banks are doing that makes me think that's going to change, basically, right? Like the expansion of central bank balance sheets, the explosion, just makes you think the trust in money, in paper money is only going to go down, basically. Yeah.